Hey, 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 welcome everyone to another episode of Five Lug Racing. With you, as always, myself, Don, with me, as always, my co host, Ryan. We're breaking down everything Daytona. We're looking ahead to Atlanta, and we got some news, breaking news in between all of it. Ryan, talk to me, Bubba. How was your weekend? How'd you enjoy Daytona, man?
Oh man, well, Daytona was Daytona. It rained just like we said it was going to,
Always.
we had that delay in there, and congratulations, William Byron, back-to-back Daytona 500 champions for the 24 team, and we'll give the accolades to him. I mean, he put his car in a position to be there at the end and get around the melee. Him and Tyler Reddick, restarted seventh, ninth, respectively, and they finished 1-2. Jimmy Johnson was behind them both, finishes third. Absolutely wild finish there. To be expected. I mean, at Daytona, plate or restricted races. They don't use a restrictor plate anymore, but these super speedways or these pack style races that we see, it's a ticking time bomb. Waiting just for somebody to slip or somebody just get pushed a little too hard, and then it's a wreck. And it's just a matter of who misses it, and
Right.
even sometimes it's hard to tell who even has the most dominant car. May not have been able to say that and with the Xfinity race, though. Shout out to Jesse Love. He was definitely one of the cars to beat. His teammate, though, Austin Hill, really just was the Pied Piper until he had mechanical failures.
Yep.
The Haas factory team guys, those two Fords really showed a lot of pep. Sheldon Creed and Sam Mayer. Those were really the cars to watch the entire race, and then there was everybody else cutting it up, and
And we
but
probably don't expect much different from those same teams headed to Atlanta this week either.
absolutely not. Atlanta is going to be more of the same, and we'll get back to that in a second. But we before we sat down tonight, Don, to film this episode, there was some breaking news, and I'm so glad it happened before we filmed because we get the chance to talk about it a little bit. But breaking news from NASCAR that a level 2 infraction was issued to the Joe Gibbs Racing 19 team for a violation and I'm going to read this here. So here's the penalty first. Level 2 infraction for modifications to the rear spoiler. Chase Briscoe, the driver, who might I add doesn't work on the car but drives it, was docked 100 points and 10 playoff points. The crew chief, James Small, suspended for 4 races and also has been fined, as far as the team is concerned, $100,000. Now, the Joe Gibbs Racing camp immediately appeals this penalty. So we will have to wait to see how this all plays out. The issue, really here in question, they say, was caused by an assembly process when the bolts used to attach the spoiler base to the deck lid caused pre-drilled holes to wear, and it supplied parts interferences. In layman's terms, NASCAR has this level 2 infraction because you're not supposed to modify parts supplied by NASCAR.
Right.
Now, NASCAR themselves does not make these parts. NASCAR picks the vendor, or in this case, there's vendors that NASCAR uses to manufacture parts for them. And in this case, or in any case that NASCAR feels that there's been a modification to the part that was supplied to the team, it's a penalty, right?
Right.
No ifs, ands, or buts. There have been instances in the past, Don, where teams have received a penalty similar to this, and it was determined that it was a manufacturing error, and these
Okay.
penalties were reversed.
Okay.
So I believe that is strongly what Joe Gibbs Racing is leaning on here is past experience that has been seen. One of the biggest ones was and I'll just say it's one of the biggest names in the sport is Hendrick Motorsports.
Right.
They had three drivers penalized for modifying a part that was found to not be modified. The drivers, the teams were all issued their points back. The fines were erased, but it had to go to the National Motorsports Appeal Council.
Okay.
And that's where this is going to head. So, this is going to be a wait and see approach. But, when NASCAR supplies parts to a team, I get it. They're not supposed to mess with it.
Right.
But, there's more parts supplied to these teams than not anymore.
Right.
And it's like that in the Xfinity series as well. So much, with the bodies, those who are tuning in, there's these little square pieces that you'll notice on parts of the body, on an Xfinity car and in a Cup car. And if you've ever not noticed that, try to pay close attention to certain areas of the car that have them, and because those are parts that NASCAR has marked that way to identify that these are supplied parts. You can't modify these. And, there's many other instances of parts supplied by NASCAR, and the spoiler being one of them. But yeah, that's where we're at. Don, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I'm curious now. I know you have experience in the automotive industry and parts being supplied to miscellaneous companies. Do parts sometimes come messed up where maybe JGR is onto something and they received faulty parts where this was technically out of their hands? They just took the parts out of the box and put on the car?
Yeah, so again, these parts supplied to them by NASCAR, so that's what needs to go on the car.
Correct.
And to answer your question, absolutely. I've worked for major manufacturers. I'll name two of them. Actually, I'll name all three of them that are in this sport: Ford, Chevrolet, and Toyota. I've worked for all three at one point in some shape or form or in another in the automotive service industry. I have over 20 years experience. And yes, absolutely. And unfortunately, too many times have I come across a situation where parts have come out of the box defective.
Okay.
It happens. A brand new part, whether, it's an automotive part or another form of industry, in a mechanical shape, in a mechanical sense, yes, you can get defective stuff right out of a box. It happens.
Okay.
It absolutely happens. And in an automotive sense, I have literally lived it to where I've had, when I was a service manager, and I've had conversations with technicians that were working on these vehicles. They get a part straight out of the box from the parts department, and go to put it on a car, and it hasn't fit. And they've had to make a modification to get that brand new part onto the car to where it's going to function properly and get that car down the road. Okay. So now in this case, if the holes were drilled out where they bolt up and they weren't drilled out to the manufacturer specification, but it was able to get onto the race car, until you're taking this thing apart and measuring tolerances, which may not be in the check to go onto the car at the shop when it gets to Joe Gibbs Racing. You take a brand new part out of the car, out of a box, put it on the car. If it fits, no questions asked. You load it on the truck and take it to Daytona, right? So if the tolerances weren't to specification that they're supposed to be, it comes off the car. NASCAR looks at it, measures the tolerances, and it's not to their liking, and Joe Gibbs claims we haven't done anything to this part, then here's where, why they're going to feel so strongly and adamantly about an appeal.
Okay.
And why they are going to appeal this to NASCAR. And this is a similar instance what Hendrick Motorsports went through in the past, and they appealed and eventually won the appeal because they were able to find that, yes, this indeed can happen. And yes, this is indeed what happened. Now, I'm not saying that has happened in this case yet, but Joe Gibbs Racing is likely very hopeful that they'll win this appeal because they feel that this is absolutely the case. And again, the driver, Chase Briscoe, he doesn't work on this car.
Right.
So, it's not something that he did. Chase Briscoe didn't say, I'm going to go cheat at Daytona. That didn't happen for all those.
Right.
I've already seen the keyboard warriors out there.
They were in full
Now,
force today.
James Small, the crew chief, yes, he does work on the car. Yes,
Right.
there's car chiefs and engineers that work on these cars. And sure, certainly, I can, people can make a choice, right, to modify something.
Right.
I'm not saying that they did that, and I'd like to believe that they didn't, because they are standing solid that we did not.
Right.
That's what their claim is. But yes, and back in the day, there was always that term used. If you're not cheating, you're not trying,
Right.
in racing, and pushing those tolerances. But you can't do that with these cars anymore. You
They've
just
made it
can't.
very
And
difficult.
it's very black and white. And there's and if you get into a gray area, it's not going to rule in your favor. So
Right. Correct.
why would you risk it? Why would you risk it? And in this case, I just feel like if they're going to stand very strong on this, then we'll see what the appeals court says, and we'll have to wait and see. It's just one of them deals where, yes, it can happen. I've seen it in my own professional life. It's happened. Um, it's a wait and see process, unfortunately.
How hard or how much different do you approach your season when your team is hit with such a heavy penalty? Let's say the appeal doesn't go through. How hard is it for a Chase Briscoe and company to bounce back from something like this? Or is it like with many things in racing, winning cures all? Go win you a couple races and you'll be just fine.
Well, yes, to both of those things. I mean, let's talk about that. How hard does a penalty hit you like that? So the reality of it is, as of right now, they have negative 67 points. This infraction occurs in the first race of the season.
Goodness.
So negative 67 points. So you're dead last in points. And even if a new entry shows up at Atlanta, you're behind them.
Yep.
So, I mean, if you have ever heard that expression, you're playing from behind the eight ball. Well, that's exactly what this team is doing. They were docked to 10 playoff points too. Now you get 5 playoff points if you win a race.
Okay.
So they could certainly equalize those by winning a couple races, but and then they come into the playoffs with 0 playoff points. Sans whatever else they earn throughout the season, whether it's stage points or whatever may be the case. But yeah, I mean, sure, certainly winning cures all. You don't want to be under the microscope, though, right? And unfortunate way to start off for Chase Briscoe. Unfortunate way to start off with a new team. Yeah, it's just and it's not of Chase's character. It's not of it's not something that you typically see out of even the Joe Gibbs Racing camp. This is just unfortunate series of events. And, I do want to bring up, there's multiple other cars on that team, right? And
Right.
you had Denny Hamlin get in an accident. Christopher Bell was in a bad accident. And the other car, Ty Gibbs, went to a backup car to start this race. So who knows if the original spoiler that he had on his car, there's just all these things that could potentially be, they could have been given a bad batch of these things. And,
Right.
really it's only the 19 car that gets under the microscope because his car finished the race 4th, and I might add, if he had gone high instead of trying to push his teammate Denny, he would have went around all that and he would have probably won this race. So yikes, if that be the case, and then a penalty comes out to a winner, which, unfortunately we saw in the truck series on Friday night. Parker Klingerman wins, and then he doesn't win because the rear end doesn't meet the height requirements, and they're an appeal. So wild start to the NASCAR season, not without drama, unfortunately. And we're just going to have to see how it all shakes out. But yeah, I mean, there's certainly ways that you can get your season back and rebound from this. You got a long ways to go. So, you just got to keep, if you're the 19 camp, you're Chase Briscoe, you got to keep your head up. You got to stay forward focused and just keep grinding, because
that's the only thing you can do.
It's not like they were told they can't go to the playoffs. They win a race, they go to the playoffs. So,
Right.
that has not been taken from them. It's just that you're at a points disadvantage once you get there.
Yep.
So you got to do what you can to neutralize that throughout the year. And the only way you do that right now, Don, is win. Right.
Go get a W. And let's not forget, y'all, Chase Briscoe won that final race before the playoffs last year at Darlington. We've got our Darlington race coming up, not too crazy close, but not too far away either. That's our throwback weekend. So
The
there is
spring
a chance
Darlington race. Yep.
to right this ship in a hurry. So we'll be following that story for you guys. But other than that, congratulations to William Byron and the 24 team and all his fans on another Daytona 500 win. But that brings us to Atlanta Motor Speedway. We're going to a smaller version of the same slice of pie we just cut, man. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, Atlanta was absolutely electric last year. This particular, fast forward 1 year later, if you rewind 1 year back, we had a 3-wide photo finish for the win at Atlanta. Daniel Suarez was the one who edged out. I just remember seeing all the memes that went back to that Cars movie with Lightning McQueen sticking his tongue out to get across the start finish line first, and it certainly was fun with them playing into that. But I mean, Atlanta this reconfigure has been nothing but amazing for Atlanta Motor Speedway. It is truly a one-of-a-kind track because it's an intermediate-sized racetrack with a super speedway type of package. So you get a little bit of both. You get a lot of passing. You get, especially with the banking that they have there, the progressive banking allows for that passing in the corners. You can't really pull away, because you get more of. If you get bumped out in front of you, the pack is going to blow right past you. So, it's a really, really fun track to watch. I know myself personally, and again, I'm just speaking from my own personal perspective here. I really, really enjoyed Atlanta more than Daytona and Talladega last year.
Absolutely. Atlanta puts on a show, and it is another one of those roll of the dice things. You kind of got to be at the right place at the right time. You got to avoid some of the chaos that happens, but there's different strategies that play into it, and that's what makes it really fun compared to your Daytonas and your Talladegas. Having that 1.5-mile track, we've heard some of the spotters talk about how everything happens so fast. At least with Daytona, sometimes you can take even a second to kind of catch your breath and then get back on it. But with Atlanta, these guys are coming back so quick. We're talking about 15 seconds faster, a lot of times 20 seconds faster than your Daytonas. So they are on edge the entire time. It's super exciting, edge of your seat type stuff. I'm really looking forward to it. Go ahead,
Yeah,
bud.
absolutely. I was just about to say, and the weather looks beautiful for it. So, we shouldn't have to worry about any of that. And that's exciting in itself, but you talked about strategies, Don, and, these races anymore with the pack style race, they seem to be raced backwards with fuel in mind. Fuel strategy matters, but tires wear a little bit more here than you see at the Daytona. So those strategies of when you're going to take them and stretch out your pit stop, because obviously if you're just coming in for gas, you're leaving a lot quicker if you take gas and tires. I love that aspect of it, and it's going to be really, really interesting to see how this weekend shakes out on track.
Absolutely.
I wanted to also say, last year we saw this same style electric shows from the Xfinity cars. And, I know you had already said we expect to see some more of the same with some of those familiar faces up front. I know Austin Hill is pretty heartbroken the way Daytona went. So, this one might be, a feather in the cap for him. Could RCR and Xfinity start off with 1-2? Both teams get a win right off the bat and jumping into the postseason already. With these Haas cars, that they were lights out. I know they went through a really, really rigorous offseason transitioning from being formerly Stewart Haas Racing and having less employees at Haas Factory Team now, and just you still have two Xfinity cars. You have one Cup car now, and then they show up to Daytona, and both in the Cup and the Xfinity side of things were really strong. Will they come and try to notch a feather in their cap? And then all the other contenders as well. Really, really excited to see how it plays out for them. There's a driver that got knocked out early in the Xfinity race. And Nick Sanchez in Big Machine Racing, they look like they had a really strong piece at Daytona, and be interesting to see how they rebound. I know Nick isn't a slouch on the plate style, racing tracks, and just so many questions, and it really is a crapshoot. But I think when handling comes into play a little bit more here at this Atlanta, because of the intermediate style layout, we'll see how and what that affects with the Xfinity cars.
Absolutely. Let's talk odds, bud. Let's talk Cup odds for Atlanta this week. No real surprise. We're talking about 3 out of the top 4 having the favorite odds to win, and it's not going to be a surprise to our listeners either. It's them Penske boys, man. Always them Penske boys.
And if you've watched the last couple Atlanta races, and if you've watched the last couple Talladegas and Daytonas, it makes perfect sense why Vegas is hot to trot on the Penske boys. We got Blaney leading the pack at plus 900. His teammate Logano at plus 950. The guy who sneaks in here right between those guys, all those really tied odds with a Penske driver, is Kyle Rowdy Busch at plus 1100, Austin Cindric at plus 1100. So there, you got your top 4 is 3 Fords, 1 Chevy, and then the hometown kid Chase Elliott coming in at plus 1400. And then you see another Ford sneak in here, Brad Keselowski plus 1500. Denny Hamlin tied odds with him. Your Daytona 500 champ plus 1600 Willie B. Last year's race winner Daniel Suarez plus 1800. Tied there with Christopher Bell, Kyle Larson. And then at plus 2,000 is Bubba Wallace, who had won a Daytona duel, showed a lot of speed down at Daytona, always runs well at the pack style racing, where drafting really matters. I mean, it's fun watching how these odds play out. But then if you look at the driver averages here at at Atlanta Motor Speedway, the favorite, Ryan Blaney, also has the best average finish in the last 6 races here. So that goes to show why he's right there at number 1. Average finish is 7.2. The surprise, but not surprise, at 7.3 is Daniel Suarez. In 6 race sample, he has 1 win, 4 top 5s, and 5 top 10s.
Absolutely.
So that's no surprise for that Trackhouse Racing 99 of the amigo Daniel Suarez to be sitting right there, and certainly somebody that looking at that, hearing that, somebody you're going to have to probably contend with at some point this week. He'll be dicing it up in the front of the field. Chase Elliott has really good statistics here as well, 8.6. He has a win here as well. AJ Allmendinger in 2 races has fared really well here. As we know, AJ Allmendinger is a full-time Cup driver again this year. So somebody to
he'll definitely be looking for a bounce-back race, as he blew a motor in the middle of the Daytona 500. So that 16 team is hungry for redemption this week.
Right. And, he has a top 5 and a top 10 here in the 2 races. Austin Cindric, another Penske guy, Ross Chastain, Kyle Busch, Justin Haley is a name there, who is a full-time Cup driver as well. Joey Logano, rounding it out there. Just Eric Jones is another name that creeps up here. And then Corey LaJoie. Now, I mentioned Corey LaJoie because he had a really strong finish at Daytona.
Correct.
The odds, as far as the statistical side of things, show that he runs really well here. And if you guys remember back, he was leading this race late, and just has had really good showings here. I mean, he's in a Ford too, and I mentioned that because I kept saying Ford, 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 because I just have seen nothing but great things out of these Fords at this track and at the last couple pack races,
Yep.
whether it's Talladega, Daytona, Atlanta. The Fords are something that you're going to have to contend with. They just push. They seem to push their way through traffic really, really well at these tracks, and they can pull the traffic along as well. So not
Right.
only can they ride along, but they can be out front and do just as well. So as far as I don't know, maybe it's a manufacturer advantage a little bit right now. They seem to got something figured out at these tracks, and could that pay dividends in both the Xfinity and the Cup side of things? We'll have to wait and see. But
Something about those dark horse noses, man.
yeah, and it's proven right now, right there. They're there, and until somebody dethrones them, I know William Byron just won a race, and there were a couple others up there, but there were some strong Fords in the Daytona 500 at given moments of that race, and even watching the duels, it's a Ford won the duels, in Austin Cindric, and um, I just I'd seen Ryan Priest, fortunately, that man is okay and strapping up behind the seat. He had a horrific wreck again. These plate style racings just have not been good to Ryan Priest. Airborne again, and that car did everything it could to not go back over on upside down, but it just you can't defy physics
I would like to take a second to thank everybody that has a hand in these race cars, um, because of you people. If even one of y'all are watching this episode, thank you for the safety and passion that you put into these race cars. Because of wrecks like Ryan Priest has multiple flips at Daytona now. He's able to get out of that race car, walk to the infield care center, and go home to his family at night. And not just Ryan, but everybody that's taken a bad hit in the next gen car across the board. I know everybody's pretty much done it, but they've really done a great job. I know we get the one-off concussions and stuff like that. Look, that kind of stuff is going to happen, y'all, but at least that's the worst it's getting right now. So just to give praise where it's due. Thank you to everybody that had a hand in these race cars.
absolutely done, and you said absolutely perfect there, because it is so true. And our thoughts certainly go out to the ARCA driver who, his car, unfortunately, he did have to go to a hospital, get checked out. And, listen, motorsports is dangerous. Okay. And the safety that goes into these cars, especially in these higher series, um, they're doing everything they can to keep the men and women who drive these things safe, and like you said, going home to their families at the end of the day.
Right.
And that's all we can ask for. We get in these cars, we know the risk we take, but at the end of the day, it's nice when you have that safety behind you.
Right.
Yeah, so absolutely. But getting back to what I was saying about Ryan Priest, his RFK Ford, absolutely fast. Brad K was very fast as well.
Yep.
They were dicing it up, and Brad is up there in the top 10 in Vegas odds, for this weekend. So, Vegas seeing something with those Fords,
Absolutely.
so was
The
I.
math is nothing.
So was I. They passed the eye test.
Yep.
There's just something about them. It works on these tracks, and we'll certainly see how they fare out this weekend. They can make us all look like a bunch of buffoons if it's Chevys and Toyotas up front all day and winning this race. But I don't think that's going to be the case. You're going to see some really strong dark horse Mustangs, and you're going to see your Toyotas and Chevys up there too. But some of those cars are really, really strong as far as dark horse Mustangs go. And one of them happens to be one of my dark horses for this race weekend.
All right.
So we might as well get into that right now. So I'll give you my
Let's
dark
do it.
horse. My dark horse is a car that I saw run really, really well here in the fall last year. in the playoffs, a driver who ran really well at Daytona, won a duel, qualified on the front row. It's going to be that 2-car in Austin Cindric. I really like what I see out of him on these style tracks. I feel like this is another great opportunity for Austin to go out and, just prove that he can run out front and perform in these cars, and dare I say, find a way to victory lane early in the season. I think that they can get it done. He's not my favorite, but he's my dark horse. And, I think anybody who argues against it is not watching these races because, he's been really, really strong at these style tracks.
Absolutely. And like you said, he's got a dual win to back it up from last year. He's got himself a restrictor style win at Daytona in 2022. Not for nothing. He showed incredible strength and a lot of skill on top of it. That was not a luck win for Austin Cindric. He went out there and won that race, so that's a great dark horse pick. I absolutely love it. As much as we've been talking about Ford this episode and at Atlanta, I'm going to have to, for my dark horse at least, I'm going to have to lean a Toyota car, and it's going to be none other than the 23 car Bubba Wallace. And I say that because it really seems like Bubba is playing on a different field this year. Ever since getting married, of course, to his lovely wife and having their first baby, Bex, who was in attendance for his dual win, which was really special for everybody to see that family celebrate together. But other than that, Bubba just being tremendously talented at these super hyper drafting tracks. He always puts his car in a good position. He always takes care of his car. He's never over aggressive when he's pushing, and he's also very, very good at pulling these packs around the racetrack. So I definitely look to see him qualify well and finish very, very well at this race. But dark horses aside, let's talk winners, man. We talked about the odds. We talked about the weather being perfect. Who's winning Atlanta this weekend, bud?
Well, first off, I'm going to just say I love your dark horse pick. It's a great pick, and he's a proven winner on plate tracks. His first ever win. He put himself in position before the rain came out in Talladega. He's won the duel, to open the season. He led laps in the 500 this year. That car is going to be strong. Absolutely love the pick. Getting into my favorite for the weekend. It's a guy who I know so desperately wants to get back to victory lane. And I seen him run really, really well at Daytona until unfortunately getting caught up in an accident. It's a track that suits him. He's as far as the drafting tracks, and he finished by this much second last year in Atlanta. It's going to be Kyle Rowdy Busch. I really think that the 8 team and the RCR team as a whole, okay, not just the 8 team, but the RCR team as a whole, their best tracks right now, until they prove me differently, coming into 2025 season, are the plate tracks when it comes to the Cup teams. Right. So, I know Austin Hill and Jesse Love are going to be lightning fast in Atlanta with the Xfinity stuff. They're just dominant there. But when it comes to the Cup teams, they are too. If you really look at it, they run really, really strong at these tracks. And these types of tracks are the great equalizer as well. So even if your program is missing on the intermediate or short track programs, you got a chance here. And the RCR engines, those ECR engines, I apologize, it's ECR engines, they are very strong on these tracks. And Kyle gets around Atlanta well. So I'm just going to take a dart throw here, and I'm going to throw it on Kyle Busch. Vegas likes him this weekend as well. He's up there mixing it up with some of those Fords. And, again, he's somebody that passes the eye test for me here. I seen what I needed to see. I know that the car's capable of doing it on these tracks, and I definitely know Kyle Busch is capable of winning. It's just a matter of when is he going to find victory lane again, and why not this weekend? I know, it's a question that you've asked, and, we both have them in our picks this weekend. Who is a win going to matter more first? Bubba Wallace or Kyle Busch? And, man, it's for both of them would be electric right now. But that, Kyle Busch had that electrically long win streak in this series, right? And then just goes winless last year. And really, at times, they just didn't look competitive. So a win early in the season, I really think gives them, a nice punch on the shoulder, jump start to their year, a rebound from a Daytona crash, and why not Kyle Busch, right? He could definitely do it.
I absolutely love that pick, and I love it for a couple reasons. Because one, it's hard to bet against rowdy Kyle Busch. The guy is a veteran. The guy is a champion. He's won at everything. He's won at every style of racing. The Daytona 500 still eludes him. He'll go for his 21st try next season. Unfortunately, he just wasn't in the right spot at the right time when Joey Logano and Ricky Stenhouse got tangled up in their late race run in at Daytona that ended up taking out a few good cars. But Kyle Busch is a proven winner. Man, what would it mean to either Kyle Busch or Bubba Wallace to get a win at this point in their career? They're both so beneficial for so many different reasons, right? It's for Kyle, it's more of a prove it to yourself again type. We can still do this at a high level. We might not be championship level anymore, but we can still win races at the highest level, the highest form of racing. And for Bubba Wallace, it's to kind of get his career back on track. He made the playoffs in 2023 without a win. Not only did he make the playoffs, he made the round of 12 without a win. That's very hard to do in today's style of formats. And in 2024, the win, of course, eluded him. He had chances to win. It just slipped away from him each time, whether it be bad luck or driver error or team error. It's somehow
Same with Rowdy.
Right. So these guys are dealing with the same kind of headaches, but it seems like maybe 2025 will be the turn for both of them. And what I also wanted to, before I get to my main pick, would you say that a win for some of these teams helps drop so much weight off of them? Your Kyle Larsons, your Denny Hamlins, your Christopher Bells, all these guys that get wins early in the seasons, they're able to do stuff that they probably normally wouldn't do if they were just trying to make the playoffs, right? So that's why wins come more easier to them. So let's talk about that for Kyle and Bubba. If a win comes, does that open some sort of floodgate for one of these guys to add a couple more wins on top of it? Now that they can take more chances and they don't have to be as on point with every single little thing at the remaining regular season races, they can afford to gamble a little bit more.
Well, I mean, a win for any race team this early in the season is a breath of fresh air because you're going to the playoffs most likely, right? I mean, you're win and lock in unless there's an abundance of winners and then points and tiebreakers and all that stuff come in the mix. But So and to add to it, a list of those other drivers like you mentioned that had bad misfortune at Daytona, and like a C Bell. There's no doubt in my mind Christopher Bell's going to victory lane at some point this year. But a win early on allows them to breathe a little bit easier knowing that they're in the postseason. Absolutely. And it would definitely be a sigh of relief, a weight off the shoulders for Bubba Wallace or Rowdy Busch because they didn't have wins last year. They didn't make the postseason last year. And, there's a lot of pressure there, I'm sure, on themselves, but also from the outside and fans as well. So, we'll see how it plays out. But, I'm really curious, who is your favorite, Don? Take us home. Who's your favorite for Atlanta this year?
I'm so excited for the weekend. I'm so excited for another style of race like this because some of the races are a little bit more laid back when you're enjoying on a Sunday afternoon and you're just kind of enjoying the racing and, you kind of see the stronger cars find their way to the front and et cetera, et cetera. But when it comes to Atlanta, it's such a throw of the dice. And I'm so tensed up all throughout the Daytona race. I was just so clenched up, right? It's going to be the exact same for me this weekend with the Atlanta races. Trucks, Xfinity, and Cup. But I'm going to have to go with the grain on my pick. And it's going to have to be a Ford driver like we've been talking about this episode. And it's going to be a guy that came so close last year, a year ago, to winning this race. And that's Ryan Blaney. We're talking about hairs that Kyle Busch and Ryan Blaney lost to Daniel Suarez fair and square there at the end of that race. And I think Ryan Blaney, and again, he's carrying a bad taste in his mouth from the Daytona finish and getting caught up in what might have been, who's to say, an unnecessary, dust up with everybody. It was just kind of just a racing thing. I'm not really putting any blame or fault on that one. Joey Logano and Ricky Stenhouse, I think that's just a racing thing at the end of Daytona. I don't think anybody was overly aggressive, and I don't think anybody was overly defensive in blocking or trying to pass there.
It was go time.
It's go time, right? Get to the front
Right.
and get there now. So, it is what it is. But I think Ryan Blaney has a bad taste in his mouth all this week in the Penske shops. And I think they bring an absolute rocket of a body armor Ford Dark Horse Mustang to Atlanta this weekend, and look for that man to be a definite problem on Sunday.
Well, you got to love that pick too. I mean, again, the Penske Fords, I definitely think any one of those Penske Fords is capable. I know Joey Logano had a heck of a piece at Daytona too. So
Yep.
they
Kyle
had,
Busch said Logano had the best car. So,
yeah. Yeah, and I would have to probably say I agree. I mean, and they that pit crew too. I mean, they diagnosed the issue.
Yep.
They got it fixed, got him back out there, and it was like he never missed a beat. Just unreal speed out of that, and then he got caught up in late in the race, like you had said. And I said it was go time. It was a go time accident, and it happens every time on a race like a Daytona, Talladega, and Atlanta. We'll see it again this weekend. We'll see if our picks are caught up in it. If your favorite driver, if you're watching at home, is caught up in it. Somebody always leaves these racetracks disappointed, and it's just a nature of the racing that it creates, but it's also very exciting to watch. So can't wait for it. And I'm looking forward to Atlanta, Don.
I can't wait. Of course, Trucks Xfinity Cup, they're all going to be there this weekend. I believe Cup fires off at 2 on Sunday. I think Xfinity countdown starts at 4 p.m. on Saturday, and the race for Xfinity starts at 5. So make sure you guys are tuned in. They're on multiple different stations, whichever one you guys stream on, find it, get yourself some snacks, check it out. It's going to be a blast. Myself and Ryan will be breaking it down for you next week, of course, as always. We love doing it. And thank you guys. Thank you guys for being here with us, and of course, don't forget to subscribe, throw a share, throw a like and a comment, let us know what you're thinking. Tell us your picks. Who do you like? What do you like about Atlanta? I want to hear about all of it. I know Ryan loves hearing all this stuff, but it's going to be a great weekend. I'm looking forward to it, Ryan. But we'll catch you guys on the next one. Thank you so much for being here. Y'all have a good one.